Hi, this is Everett, Everett's Watercolors. Welcome to my classroom. And welcome to all the viewers from the United States and around the world. So I hope you're all watching today and give me some likes and some thumbs up. And I think you'll enjoy today's program. I'm in the studio today with my wife, Gloria.
Hi, everyone.
And she's going to monitor the broadcast and check the chat room. And I think I'll put the chat room on now. Okay, the chat room is live. What I did last week was I did a preliminary painting. I did a watercolor sketch, color sketch for an acrylic painting. And I showed you both of those last week. And then I told you I'd show you the product and results. And I'm going to show that to you in a few moments. And after I do that, then we're going to get into today's class, which is I'm going to be working with colored pencils. And I'm going to do a preliminary painting, basically, with colored pencils for a watercolor painting for the following week. So you're going to have a chance to see a lot of color pencil and some painting with that also. So I'll take you over to my painting table and let me get started. Let me turn on my light. Okay. Okay, this is the photo reference from last week. Remember the mountain is a sunrise at a mountain, which I showed you this last week where I started, and I'll reference the video in the comment in the description below. I have a reference to this video to show you to go back and take a look at that video how I did it. And this is the painting I did from that photograph. And this is the watercolor study using Holbein watercolor paints. Okay. And then I showed you another example of what I did with acrylics. I did the same painting, but I did this in acrylics on watercolor paper. So that's where I was. And I said, well, I'll come back next week and show you the end results and show you the project that I was working on. So this one is in acrylics, which is a much bolder color, and I really like the way that came out. So let me show you the photograph. I took a photograph of the project. Okay, there's a picture of the project. And if you don't know what it is, it's a mailbox. And so what I did, my plan was to paint a picture on the mailbox so that it would be something that people could take a look at as I come by the mailbox. And you can see there, it's the same photograph that I used in my color study and in my acrylic study that I did on watercolor paper. But this was done on a tin mailbox. Now the thing with acrylic was I was painting on a surface that was metal, and of course it was enameled paint on top of that. So the acrylics is water-based, and I had to put a couple layers here and there. So, but it's on there fast now, and I'll keep monitoring that to make sure it stays okay. But that's waterproof. It's acrylic, and I think it turned out really nice. And it's just what I was looking for: sunrise over the mountain on top of the mailbox. So that's an acrylic painting done on the mailbox. And I took that from the two color studies I did in the class last week, which the video will be referenced in the description below. So I take it back to my okay. So today's business is new, and we're going to talk about colored pencils. This Holbein colored pencil set, which I have here in my art supplies on everettswatercolors.com. It comes with 150 colors, open stock. But also, you can get that you can also get that color pencil in 12 sets, 24 sets, 36, 100, and 150 sets. It comes on 150 colors. And they're broken down in here. You can see, I'll show you. This is a brochure that I have for the display. And this is the color sets up here. The 12 set. It comes with a basic set, a design tone set, and a pastel tone set. Then over here, there's a 24 set of watercolor color pencils, and there's a 36 set over here. And then they have a 100 set, a 50, and a 150 set here of all 150 colors in one set. Yeah, you can check my website. I have all the colors listed there on everettswatercolors.com, and you can go there and take a look at all the colored pencils. Now, the thing I really like about that is not just the variety of colors, you know, all the yellows and reds, yellows and greens and blues and purples and the neutral tones, beautiful, grays, blacks, and so forth. What I like about these pencils are, number one, they're oil-based. They have an oil-based core, so they're easy to blend on paper or basically about anything you can use. The color of the pencil itself, this is the color of the actual pencil color, the color that's on the pencil exterior, and so that's the color of the core, and it's also the color of the outside of the pencil. The color name is on there, and also the color number. Color numbers on each pencil and the color name. Okay, now what I'm going to do today, the equipment I'm going to use today is I'm going to have 30. I have a 36 set here that I have broken out in my own display. And I have 36 colors here that I'm going to be using. I won't be using them all, but I'll use out a 36 set. I'll be using a Gemini 140-pound watercolor paper, and also I'll be using Strathmore Bristol. Those are for demonstrations, but also we're doing a painting on this one. And I'm also going to be using the Meltz blender. Now the Meltz blender comes in a small 2-ounce bottle, and it's in liquid form. It's water soluble, so you can add water to it and dilute it a little bit, but you can use it right out of the bottle. And I have a little tray here, a little lid off of a little plastic container. I'm using that as my little palette. That's what I'm going to use that to put that on. And I have a couple of paint brushes. This is a half-inch. It's an old half-inch brush. It's an old watercolor brush, and this is a number 4 round. These are just 2 brushes I'm going to use today for the blending. Okay. I'm going to put that aside here for a moment. You can see here, this is my 32 set here, and you can see they're well used. Designer set, the basic set. Here's the pastel set here, or a portion of them, and then this is extra ones that I got to make the 36 colors. They're beautiful colors. They're nice and soft, and I'll show you how they're used. Let's take a couple colors. Let's say I'm going to demonstrate here very quickly. Take a piece of this is a 140-pound watercolor paper, and so it has some tooth to it. And so what I use, if I use this, I start out very lightly with a light application. Light application. This is happens to be this has had to be my green. This is holly green, which is a nice tree color. What I do is I put a first layer down there, a very light layer, and then I may move the other and do a crosshatch. I'll come the other way, do a crosshatch, and that'll cover the paper very nicely. And then what I'll do is take the yellow. This is yellow canary, I think it is. Yellow canary, which is a yellow, and I'm going to put that over here on this side. I'm going to blend a little bit over, blend it over just a little bit. So the blending process, I just layered over top of the other color. And also I'm going to put in a little bit of this light green, this apple green, this light green color. And kind of put that, I'm going to mix that in with the yellow. So I have a light yellow green, and I'll have a dark green on top of that. Yeah. I'm using some of the colors out of my the basic set here. Okay, but that's the blending process. Is you just put it on paper like this, and then you blend it over. Now just on this case here, overlapping it is the blending it. Okay. Now, if you leave it in a rough state like that, you can see that the texture on the watercolor it doesn't cover the whole paper. You have the groove in the paper. Now, the groove has a rough texture on this 140-pound watercolor paper. But let me take my blending. As I go along here, I'll be blending some of this stuff up. So let me take the blender. And I'll put just a couple drops here, 2 or 3 drops here on my little palette. And I'll take this this 1/2 inch, and I always wet the brush a little, just dampen a little bit, not soaking wet, but just dampen it. So I put it in the water bucket, and I'm going to pick up a little bit of that blending liquid. And now I'm going to go in and go ahead and just put one brush across that. Just one brush stroke. Now you can see there it's starting to blend already. You can see the colors starting to blend on top of the paper. Now as I go back and hit it 2 or 3 more times, you can see the colors starting to really blend now on top of the paper. Now it starts to look like watercolor. Okay, so then this right at this stage now, this has some granulation, and a lot of artists love granulation, where you have a little bit of texture in the color, like for trees or grass or whatever. So that's the granulation stage, where you get to a point where you still can see a little bit of the texture of the paper and a little bit of dimple. Then you can go on and brush it a little bit more, and then you get a smooth, color all the way across. Now what I did there was I filled in all the holes in the paper, the grooves in the paper, so I get a complete solid covering. Okay, this is cold press paper. It's 140-pound weight. And hi Alice, good to see you. Hi Sam. Hello to you all. The question was about the press of the paper. It's 140 pounds cold press, which is my standard studio watercolor paper. And the case that I have it in, you can buy it. A case is a separate case that I got separately. So it was just something it's very convenient for carrying the pencils in.
I think it came from Amazon.
Yeah, I think you can order from Amazon, places like that. It holds the pencils very nicely. That's why I like it. Now, when you get the pencil sets, you order them, they'll come in a tin. They come organized already in a 12 set tin or a 24 set. They come in a nice tin container. But then you can go ahead and put them on a pencil holder of some kind if you want to take them out. But you can leave them in the tins, and that's just a good way to keep them organized also. Okay, that's a quick demonstration of the blending of the pencils. I'll just show that one time. We'll go through that quite a few times here today.
I want to thank them for the questions too.
Yeah, great. Coming. Yeah, keep them coming. Now, I've got a sample sheet here of all the blues I have in my 32 set. You can see that I go from turquoise to agua, which is a light blue, and then there's a sky blue, which is a pastel color. Then there's cobalt blue, then royal blue, which is a dark blue, and this is Prussian blue at the very bottom. Now these are very comparable, and I can show you on my palette here that the colors in here are exactly the same colors I have in my watercolors, so they're very compatible. So So if I was using the pencils in my watercolor painting, for example, which can be done, I can mix them and match them with the actual colors I have on the palette. As an example, this, let me get my watercolor. This is the cerulean blue right here. And I'll be using cerulean blue. I'll be using cerulean blue in the painting today, and we can see a perfect match of that. But on cobalt, there's cobalt over here, and see royal blue I have down here. But I can match up these colors in my palette exactly with the colors in the pencil, if I wanted to. And what I do, the reason I'm showing this here is I use my palette here to actually lay out the colors I'm going to use in the actual painting. Okay. Now I'll get back here to this little practice. Now this first one here is turquoise, and I've gone ahead and done one already. You can see here. Let me get the other pencil or the other brush. Let me put a little more drops in here. Okay, I keep the brush damp, and then I load it up. I load up a little bit of paint, a little bit of blender, and I can go to the agua. I just go across that, and you can see how it blends very nicely. The sky blue I'll show you later, and then royal blue. Let's try royal blue. Now you really see it. Really see the blending there. The blender. Now over here, I did a little bit of mixture. I took turquoise and I put a little bit of that yellow on top of that, and it made a nice green. You can see the blending here on this one. So these are things that I would recommend when you get your pencil set, is to put them out on a piece of paper, and then actually lay them out, and then practice the blending. Now this Meltz is just like water. I mean, it's an oil-based colored pencil. Now, this is really dark. That Prussian blue is really a dark blue. Okay, so that's blending with the blender, with the Meltz blender, which I'm going to use in today's demonstration. Okay, all right. So let's get to the demonstration. I just want to play around with a little bit. Yeah, for demonstrations, I also want to show okay. There's something new coming in that I've got coming in now. I ordered a Meltz pencil, which will be a pencil blender. This is the one that comes in a 2-ounce bottle, which is very nice. It's if you use a brush, but I'll come in with a new product that's called the Meltz blender, but it'll be in a pencil. And a pencil, you just use it the same way you would a brush, and use it to blend the color with. All right, so let's go through here. I want to.
Well, you'll be demonstrating the pencil once you have a chance to try it.
Yeah. So this example here this would be a tree, for example. If I was doing a tree with the sunshine coming through, that would be a tree. If I'm going to do grass, the grass I'm going to do today will be a little bit. I'm going to use a little bit of burnt umber. Now tall grass, just use a pencil stroke to get it started. Different sizes. And then if I want to put a darker, say a darker base to that, say that I'll put this is umber, brown umber. And then I'll use the blender here. I'll use the round brush this time. Just take the brown brush. And if I want to go in here and And also from experience, I can also extend this. This is almost like a little palette here. I can take that color and I can spread it. I can take it, this little reservoir of color, I can use this to move it around a little bit. So and this granulation is very nice because it won't go solid right away. You can leave it partial and it'll give you a gradated or a textured look on the particular painting. So you can leave some things rough and some things smooth. Now in the sky, I'm going to be doing a sky today. I'm going to be using the, let me show that a little bit. I'm going to be using two colors. Cerulean. Now this is cerulean blue. Now the sky and water. Now the sky I'm going to do in a horizontal. Now when I have my pencils, I keep them well sharpened because I want a nice length of pencil to show there, lid. So when I do a sky or water, I'm going to be using a horizontal stroke, just like I would if I was painting. And when I do a pencil, I think about it just like I would painting. I'm doing a horizontal brush stroke. Here I'm doing a horizontal pencil stroke. Same idea. So now depending on what you're doing here, I'm going to put an even wash here, an even flow of color. But let's say this could be sky or it could be water, reflection into the water. And using a horizontal stroke. Let me put that away. That's cerulean. That's cerulean blue. And let me take my brush, rinse out now if I've been mixing this with other colors, I'm gonna make sure I've cleaned it out. Just like I would if I was using a palette, using a palette in the paints. I want to keep that brush clean. So now I'm going to pick up a little bit of that Meltz. Make sure I got some on. I got put a little bit more on. Just a couple drops. Okay, now I'm going to load the brush, just like I would with paint. And I'm going to drag that. I'm going to drag that horizontally across here. And you can see how the color is blending very nicely. And the more I brush across it, the smoother it gets. So if I'm doing a sky or water, I can leave, especially water. If I was doing water and I had some water that had a rough water, maybe some waves in it or something like that, or little ripples, I could leave it this way so that it would look like water. If I wanted to go all the way across, then it would look more like the sky. Yeah, I'm using my brush just like I would if I was painting, just back and forth. Now I could put more blender in there, but right now I just wanted to give a sample of some colors that I'm going to be using today, okay? And some of the techniques. I'm going to be mixing colors here for trees and grass. I'm going to be doing grass strokes for weeds and so forth. Then I'm going to be doing brush strokes for sky and water. So there's sort of some of the basic techniques I'll be using with the brush and with the blender. Let me put that aside. Now, one last thing I want to show or demonstrate here is this is Bristol. This is Bristol Vellum. In this case, it comes in a pad, Bristol Vellum Strathmore, and I have this on my website also on my watercolor page, on my supply page. And I've gone ahead and put in some colors here, and I put in the same as I did here on the watercolor paper. And this will be a good example here. I use the same colors here. Oh, there's a cerulean. I put that in there. Now let me put some more. Let me put some more Meltz on here. Okay. All right. Now load the brush up. Now, this first one is cerulean. And because the Bristol paper is a softer surface to it, smooth surface. If anybody's ever worked with Bristol paper, you'll know that this is very smooth paper. wonderful for drawing. But the blending of that is a much smoother result if you use a different kind of paper. So when you're using colored pencil, the paper does make a difference. Watercolor paper, you got a little bit of roughness to it, a little bit of tooth. The tooth in the paper, the roughness. This is 140-pound cold press. It's going to have a little bit of roughness to it, but you can fill it in as you put more paint on, just like you would with a brush. But the smooth Bristol paper, it's going to be very smooth, very smooth. And of course, Bristol paper is very smooth to the touch. You can feel it's very soft, very smooth surface. So it's going to spread much easier for spreading. So for those that are doing drawings or whatever on Bristol paper or any kind of paper, those are the kinds of things you can expect. Watercolor paper will have a little more tooth. A smoother paper will give you a little more smoother output. Okay, let's get into today's project. Here, this is the reference photo I have here. This is the Meadowland. This is the Waterway Meadowland. And I took these photographs about a week ago. It was a sunrise coming up, and there wasn't many clouds out there. It was just the sun over there. But this was the area I was really interested in, was this part of the waterway with the reflection and the trees and so forth. Now I took 2 shots of this because it was such a wide panorama. And so what I did was I'm going to combine the 2 of these because I like the right side over here on this side, and I like this section over here on this side. So I took 2 photographs, and what I did is I married them together. So my composition really is going to be from here to here. The left side's over here, and the right side's over here. So that's my composition. And I'm not going to paint all these weeds here in the front. I'm going to avoid those. They could be painted in later, but I'm going to do just the background trees. This row of trees over here, the grass line, the reflection, and these tall trees, these tall grasses over here on the right, and the water, reflection, and the sky. I'm going to leave out the tall weeds here in the front. So this is the panoramic view of what I'm looking at, but I'm going to crop it down to the areas I'm really interested in. That section right there. So I've taken the photograph then, and I made my design drawing, which I always do in all my art. I always do a design drawing, and this was what I had captured. I captured the essence of the tree line over here, the background, trees way off in the background, the tall grasses over here on the right, the reflection in the water, sky, and then the foreground, which is going to have water and just a little hint down here of some grass and so forth in the foreground. So this is my composition. Now I'm going to have this photograph and I'm going to have this composition here on my website, and it's downloadable. I'll have the downloadable link on here. Now if you want to try this for drawing or do it for painting, you can do it. You can join my watercolor page, which is on Facebook. It's Everett's Watercolor, and it's on Facebook. I'll have the link to that in the description of the video today. But you can go to my website. You can download. I'll have the link. You can download this diagram, and you can download the photograph. I'm going to use basically the same diagram next week when I do a watercolor painting of the same scene. It'll be a little bit different, but it'll be the same format basically. Okay. So based on the size of what I'm looking at, and also because I'm using colored pencils today, I made the format a little bit smaller. So I've got a 10-inch by 7-inch format here, about a 10 by 7 size, and I recommend that when you start out with drawings or color drawing, colored pencil, or even with watercolors, start out with a small format. Don't get it such large that you're going to be overwhelmed with how much you have to cover. So I'm going to start out today and with colored pencils. And this colored pencil is going to be a color study for my painting next week. So I'm really looking forward to it. So the first thing I'm going to do is get I gotta get a color here. I want to get. I'm going to work. First of all, I'm going to do the background trees. Now, the background trees, if you look at the photograph, is very light. They're off in the distance, a little misty back there, but a very light background, very light. And they're gray looking, so I'm going to get a gray color. Well, I know a little bit cobalt blue, and I can get a little bit of burnt sienna. Okay. Because I know from my palette, if I mix in blue and burnt sienna and blue, I'll get a gray. This is what I have here. So I practice my colors here in my palette, so I know what I'm going to get, and I can get the same color mix here with a colored pencil. So the first thing I'm going to do is going to put a little bit of. We start up here with just a little. I'm going to use a side stroke, and do a light application because I want this is going to be a light value, so I don't want to get too dark. So it'll be colorful enough. I don't have to get much. These colored pencils, the colors are very vibrant, and they're long lasting. And I think you'd really enjoy working with these because these are a lot of fun. These are very portable. You can take them anywhere you want to go. I'd use them in my plein air. When I go out sketching, I take my colored pencils with me, along with my watercolor sketch pad. So I either do a color sketch or a pencil sketch, and so it's good practice going out and now I'm going to go ahead and blend these as I go along. So that's going to be a light. I'm going to use the Meltz blender, and I'm going to use the round brush, and I'm going to use a side stroke just like I put it down. I'm going to put that color in there. I'm blending that blue and that burnt sienna, that light brown burnt sienna. And I'm just going to put that color in there real quickly. I think I'll go back. I'll use the other brush. That's too small. Okay. So I'm putting in those background trees, which are very light, and a little gray color. I'm gonna let that dry, and if I want to go back in and add a little more, I can do that later. But right now, I don't want to go in. I could show you a little bit of wet on wet, but what happens when you do wet on wet, the pencil becomes activated. You activate that color on the pencil, and it gets darker. So I'm gonna leave that light for right now. So leave it a light. It'll work. It's a light grayish color. A little bit of difference of brown and blue together. It's not a straight blend, but a kind of a variable blend back there. That's nice. Okay, so now the next color I'm going to play with is the trees. So I'm going to work on this tree line over here on the left-hand side. So I'm going to use two colors. I'm going to use the light green and the dark green. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to put in the, let's start with a darker green. This is holly green. And I'm going to use like a cross stroke, which I'm going this way, then I'm going to maybe come back the other way just a little bit. Not very, I'm going to put it into it's going to be a dark value, so I'm not pressing real hard, but I'm pressing harder than I did on the background there. Then I'm going to take the apple green, which is the light green, and I'm going to put that over here because the sun's coming from this direction. So the light edge of the tree would be on the right-hand side. So that's how I'm going to break up this tree mass over here. You can see the photograph didn't have that broken up, but as an artist, I can break it up. And that's what I'm going to do. And this tree over here, which is a little evergreen tree stuck out here in the foreground, or forward of the other trees, is near the background. I'm going to come in behind that and put a touch of light, as a light edge on the front side. And there's a little tree in front of that. Okay. And I'm quickly going to go along here and put in this darker color. It's same technique here. I'm putting in a dark color. I'm going to go ahead and do all the trees here with the same idea. I'm going to put a shadow side away from the sun and then put a lighter color on the sunny side. So take this light green now and put in the sunny side. And I know I'm going to come back and blend on this, so I don't have to really hit all the, I can fill in the blanks here, or edges or spaces when I come back and blend. So I can go ahead and just fill it in very quickly. And this a couple more back here. I got this one a little dark here. There's one back here. That'd be the last dark edge I need. You make them all a little different. This is where your artistic eye comes in, where you can make little changes as you go along. And I can make this a little bit lighter here, and it'll come down a little bit lighter next to the dark. That'll separate that tree line a little bit, so you can see the individual trees. I'll come back in with some more of that darker color. And as soon as I blend this, you'll see these trees will really come alive. Now, not technically, but let's say realistically, you could use a vertical stroke here. Trees are vertical, so you could emphasize the dimension of an object. For example, if you're doing a building or something that's vertical, you could use a vertical stroke. I mean, that's up to you should practice that a little bit, find out which works best for whatever you're doing. Because I'm going to blend all this together, it doesn't really matter if I'm going sideways or in circles or whatever. I'm just trying to cover the space. Okay, now let me go in now with so I don't lose my pencils. I'll put them back in where I found them. And that's always a good idea, to keep them organized and then put them back where you used them. And that's why this little carrying case holder is very, very helpful. Now I'm going to go around now. Now you can see those colors starting to blend. And this Meltz blender just takes over. And it's just like watercolor. I mean, it just flows. You can see that color blending right there. I'm doing to keep. That's why I made the light and the dark, because if I made this all the same color, it would just be one big green area. And this way I broke it up into a light and dark. So at least the separation of the trees would be a little more believable. So that's why I chose that, is to separate the sides, light and dark. This last little one back here. You can see how that light and dark blend together. That's why I wasn't worried about the covering everything, because I knew as soon as I started blending it, they would come together anyway. And I could leave little edges of white paper if I wanted to, but I just decided to go ahead and fill it in. You can leave little highlights. And this little tree out here in the way out forward. Now, actually, realistically, if I was being a little more careful, the color out here would be a little bit lighter than the color back here. But I'm not gonna fuss with that right now. I can go back in later and make a change to that if I want to. In other words, perspective-wise, things get a little bit cooler and a little bit duller as you go back. But I'm gonna leave that alone. Now I want to go ahead and get the grass. I'll bring it up so you can see a little bit closer there now. I got the background in with the light gray. And I got the trees in there with a two-tone. I put in the light green and the dark green to break up that tree line. Okay. Okay, now I'm going to do a little bit here. Now, the reason this thing, if you'll notice on the photograph, there's an edge along here, which is that's what interests my eye. That's the first thing I caught, was the edge along here has got a light edge along this grass line. I want to use that as part of my art. I'm going to show a little bit of that green yellow edge along there. There's a little bit over here, just a touch over here. And I'm going to bring a little bit of that yellow in. I want that green. I want that green to be different than the tree green. It's a little bit brighter. So I'm going to put a little bit of yellow mixed in with this green. And not so much back here, because the further I get away, the less intense that color becomes. The most intense color is right here. So here I am controlling a little bit of where I want the eye to go. So the center of interest is going to be somewhere in this area because I got the brighter colors, more interesting shapes there. Okay, now burnt sienna. Behind that yellow there's a little bit of this tall grass behind here, which has got like a reddish, orangish reddish top to them. So this is tall grass here in front of these trees. So I'm using a bit of burnt sienna here, just a little bit of burnt sienna to simulate that. Okay. Now the bank itself, if you look at the bank in front of that greenery now is dark because it's in shadow. So I can bring down, I'm going to use a little bit of this burnt umber, and I'm going to put that right in here, right down to the water line. So this burnt umber is going to be the forward side or forward part of this bank over here. We'll call it a grass bank. It's kind of right next to the water. So this is like the muddy part of the bank where the grass is on. It's a little bit bigger over here. So perspective wise, I got this bank is larger as I go forward. It gets smaller, smaller, smaller until I get all the way down here. So that perspective works there. And I could make these trees bigger here and go down, but I just not going to worry about that today. That's part of another lesson. Today is just to work with colored pencils and show a little bit. Now this little bank over here has a dark edge to it too also. And also over here, as I go across the water here, there's mud banks here on this side, on the right side of the. So I'm going to put those in. There's a little bit. So as I go around with this color, I'm going to put it in wherever I need it. Put this color over here. So these are the muddy parts. These are the muddy parts of the of this bank over here. There's some tall grass. I'm going to go ahead and put in some burnt umber here, just to simulate that. And while I'm down here, I'm not everywhere, but I'm going to start putting in a little bit of color down here. Just a little bit of color. Put a little bit of burnt umber here. I'm going to spread this out a little bit. Some little darks and lights. So this foreground is just going to be a very simple, colorful area with not much definition. Just some color down here to take you into the painting. Okay, now before I go any further, I'm going to go ahead and blend what I have so far. So let's take the small brush, and because I have a small area here, I'm going to just fill in the burnt umber. Oh, excuse me, this is burnt sienna. It's got a little reddish, little orangish, got a little reddish grass that grows up here, up next to these trees. So that's that color there. Now I've been out to this location several times, and I've actually painted out there, and I've observed it several times. I've taken lots of pictures. I did a drawing of this particular area, and I'll show it to you after I finish this. And pick up some more. Now I'm going to hit that yellow, just that yellow green. Now as I hit it with you can see the color come alive. Look at that. As I touch it with that blender, it just pops out. There's that yellow green right there. That's that yellow green grass. A little bit over here, just a touch. All right, then I'm gonna punch in that dark muddy bank that goes down into the water. Okay. I'm gonna leave the a lot of detail, a lot of things I may leave out a little bit today because I want to get to the final results here. But I think you can see, I'm just going to go through the demonstration of how I did each one of these sections, and then we'll go over the overall painting. But this is as you do a drawing like this is also practice. You're practicing painting. You're really saying, okay, this is the paints I'll be using. This is the brush strokes I can use. These are the colors that I'll be using. Bigger brush. A little more melts. Just I'm using little drops at a time. I'm not pouring out a lot. So going back to the bottle. A little bit, a little bit of dry brush down here. Just okay. Now I think I'll work on these tall grasses. What I did here, I'll take a little bit of. I have in my palette. Let me go back to the beginning. So over here, I have yellow ochre. I have the colors in my color pencils. The same colors are in my palette, and this is what's really great. Uh, and this is that tall grass stroke I was talking about. These are tall grasses over here, and these tall grasses are all back here on in this these two banks over here. I'm drawing those in, not the foreground. These are the ones behind. These are tall grasses back here up on these banks. These little flats, or these little mud flats, or little mud mounds, or whatever they are, little land spaces that jut out here into the water. They got all kinds of this tall grass on top. And so I'm using the yellow ochre here to capture that. And I'm just using a real quick stroke, a grass stroke. Let me take a quick one. Start talking so much, my the voice gets dry. All right. And I also like over here because the grass has that red top. I'm going to use a little couple strokes of burnt sienna. And this is the same colors in my. It's amazing. These colors are the same colors that are in my palette. Because as I put this down here, I can recognize the color from my paintbrush. It's the same color I get when I'm using the paintbrush on paper. So it's very familiar to me. I'm very confident with it, and so it works every time. Now down the bottom, I may put a little bit of use a little bit of violet down here. Put a little bit of violet because it's kind of a shadow down here, and I think I'll use like a little side brush stroke here. Give me a little shadow pattern. You know, you put a little bit of violet down here, put a little color down here also, a little violet. Okay. Yeah, I like burnt sienna. I put burnt sienna down. I like burnt sienna. Put a little burnt sienna down. So this is going to be a mixture down here in this foreground. It'll give it a nice, interesting look. Okay, now the shadow pattern or the reflections. I'm going to start with black. There's a black pencil I have in here, and I'm going to start with a gray, and I'm going to use a vertical stroke on this. And you can see here there's a reflection in the water that comes down from the trees. That's about all I can see from there. And I'm also going to have a color from the bank. So what I want to do here is I want to put in at the base of this. I'm going to put a little bit of yellow over here, reflection, because that's what's coming off the bank. And a little bit of green, a little bit of light green. That's a shadow reflection. These don't have to be perfect because they're reflections. It is showing partial color. Okay, and the part of that bank is going to be reflected. This part right here. Now the actual water line I'm going to put in dark. So it's going to be, I'm going to use this dark black to put in the water line. Separate the reflection from the actual drawing. So I'm going to come along here with that black line. That's the water line for the reflections. So I'm coming down from that reflections. And I'm coming down in a vertical stroke. I'm using the side of the pencil. And I don't want it to be real dark. I want it to be like a medium value. But what I'm just trying to fill in this space down here now. I just want the face filled up with color. So I'll start with this. And the reflection is going to follow really the contour of the shapes up here. So I have a little section here that's got a shape to it. Now on top of that, I'm going to put, because there's green up there, I'm going to have some green mixed in with this gray. So the green now is going to come in with the color with the gray. So that black will gray down the green, and so I won't have a green reflection. I'll have a grayish green reflection. So that will work very nicely. I think that'll work. That'll work just fine. Okay, now I'm going to take the Meltz again, real quickly here. And I want to brush start from the water line or from the reflection line and brush down. So that's going to follow that. It's going to follow that shoreline right on down, and you can see the green now mixing in with that gray or the black. So I'm getting the reflections from the tree line reflecting into the water. Now I think what I'll do is now because that brush has been playing around with that dark black, I've got to wash it out because I want to go back into that light again. More Meltz. With the brush. Now I want to go in there and get this reflection of the green and blend that in with the other reflection. Okay. There's a little reflection over here from the bank, so I'll put that over here inside, just to touch it off a little bit. Now, the only place I really it was some of that grass also down here in front of this tree line over here. So I'll put a little bit of burnt sienna back there, just to finish that off. Okay. Now on top of these, I'm going to put some yellow in here too, because the sun is shining on this grass, so it glistens in the sunlight. So I'll put a little bit of sun, a little bit of light over here, which means put a little bit of yellow. And I'll go back with that burnt sienna again and yellow ochre. Yeah, I recommend you have a plan, or I always put the colors back, or I try to put the colors back in the same place I got them, at least in the same category I have them, so I can find them. Because I know I've got the colors memorized. I know where they are, and I know where to find them. So that way I just don't have to look for them too hard, other than go to the right section. So my yellow ochre is up here in the front. My burnt sienna is right here. Okay, now I'm going to put this together with a little bit of blending. I'm going to leave this kind of rough. I'm just going to just show this is kind of, it won't be the end result, but this will be kind of, it'll be the starting point of putting in this tall grass. It's just like watercolor. You usually put in more than one layer. You can go back here and put in several layers of color and marks. So you're not restricted on just putting in one time. You can go back and put in more color on top. You can layer colors on top of color. So it's a, it's a process. It's a building process. A little bit of shadow down here at the bottom of this. Over here. Okay. All right. I think the less really important part of the demonstration is to put in the sky. So let me go ahead and get my sky colors. I've got I'm going to use cerulean, which I mentioned, and I'm going to use sky blue. These are the two blues I'm going to use. So this cerulean is in the basic set, no, in design set, and then the sky blue is in the pastel set. Very nice set of colors. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, just like most skies, let me move my brush aside here for a second. Let me turn the board, little arm room here. I'm going to start at the top, and I'm going to use cerulean blue. It's a little bit, cerulean is a little bit darker color, so I'm going to use that at the top of the sky. And I'm going to use a fairly level pressure here, because now I can ease up on the pressure. The sun's coming from this direction, so I'm going to make this area over here a little bit lighter, just to infer that that's the source of light. So the sky will be a little bit lighter in that part of the sky. So I can go ahead and play with that. So I'm trying to keep the color even, or as even, just even color, and about the even value. I don't want to get too many dark spots. Okay, then I take the sky blue, which is a much lighter blue, and then I come in here and I merge, or I blend in, starting with the cerulean blue, and bring it on down into the tree line. And I'm not going to try to go over too much of the tree. I want a little bit of space there of light paper. So when I come down, it's going to blend, and I can leave a lot of lighter value right above the ground. Now, in reverse, I can do the same thing here in the water. I can go down here now. The top of the sky, and here's the top of the reflection. So the sky is reflected into the water. So I'm going to put the darker value down here. So this demonstration just to show you how I did this, and I'm going to show you a painting I did. A drawing I did of this whole process. But this is how I went about it. These are the steps I used, and these are the colors I used. And then now the bottom part here, I'm going to pick up the sky blue, which is the lighter blue. I'm going to blend that on down very light at the very bottom. So I got the reflection is the same colors as the. I'll put these back. This is the cerulean blue, and pastels over here. Keep them in order. Okay, now I'm going to need a lot more blender now, because it's a larger area. And I can wet the brush a little bit, because it doesn't have to be. Remember, this is water soluble, so I can thin out the thinner a little bit, or blender, and load the brush, and I can go across here now. I can start blending in the sky color. Now, as I go back and forth on this, it'll get more and more diluted or melted. So the Meltz now is really blending that color. And I'm going to leave a little lighter value across the top of those trees. But typically the sky is a little bit lighter above the trees or above the horizon. If you look out there on a sunny day or any day, you'll see the sky is a little bit lighter at the horizon. Okay, let me show I got get a couple more drops here. I got to load up again and knock in the water. So again, I'm going to start at the top or at the bottom here for the water, for example, and then go down. So this is a reflection into the water. Go across the reflection of the trees and so forth. And really what I'm doing now is I'm softening up the edges here so they don't look as defined. In fact, I want those to be softer, the softer edges. So I'm really blending the top of that trees now with the water and soften that up automatically. I'm looking forward to getting that new supply of pens. I'll see how they work because I can show those next week. Hopefully, I can see the shows next week on part of the demonstration of the painting. Uh, just to show you what they can do. So this one now going round down to the back area there. Okay, now the only areas I left out was areas here which I call these were mud. These were like I'm using a bit of purple here. This is mud that came off that comes off the banks. And really, I have a color I had another color I was going to use there. And I have this is called gray. This is called gray number 3. This gray color. It's a very nice color. And this part here, I can use the gray to tone that down and make it look like a lighter value. But I can put that in there for the mud tone. And I could put a little bit of brown in that to make it look darker and so forth. But just to show you what I could do with that. And then down here, I'm just going to introduce a little bit of green, just a little bit of green. Because there is grass down here. There's grass, weeds, ground. So it's a combination of all kinds of colors down here at this point. And I'm going to mix that up. I'm going to blend that up with my brush. Now here I can do a little bit of, now it's almost like a little source of paint here. I can use this paint down here and draw a little bit of design here, showing the grass edge here in the foreground. So as I wet this off, I can use that wet paint or wet mixture now to put a little design down here at the bottom to make it look like weeds or grass or whatever. So I can paint along with this just like I would in watercolor. Once I get the paint wet or the color wet, I can maneuver and put those shapes down here to give me an interesting little design down here at the bottom. Okay, well that ends the demonstration here for today. This is a demonstration using the color pencils. And I showed you the blending process. I showed you the blender, the Meltz blender, and I showed you how the colors can be melded together, blended, combined, leaving rough edges. If you want to have rough texture, you can leave a little bit of it uncovered. And you can cover quite a large area like the sky and the water like I showed you here. Now let me show you one that I've completed. Before I do that, let's put a mat around this. Now once you finish that off, you can put a mat around it and make a small little painting out of it. So that's pretty good for a start. And I would call that layer number 1. It can go back in, darken up some of the weeds over here, touch some of the edges on the grass, and work on the little mud flats here, and maybe a little more texture, not texture, but a little more little marks back in the background and break up some of that colors and so forth. But it's a pretty good start. Okay, here's the one I did. Here's the one I did for preparation. You can see here it's a little more finished, and it turned out quite well. The colors were very dark. Let me bring it up nice and tight. So that's the color pencil study. I used the same kind of strokes and so forth. Took a little more time on the grass and so forth. You can see the reflection worked out real nice. The sky and the water reflection came out very nice. And here's one I did on location that's almost the same. The sky was a little different. Here the sunrise was there, and I tried to get the sunrise reflected in the water, but that's what I did. This was actually done on location. This is a plein air sketch that I did on location at that same location. So this is plein air. This I did in the studio with a little bit of planning and preparation from the picture. And this is what I did today as a quick demonstration. So big color pencils are really nice to use, and to me they're very helpful. And they're also, as I said, the main objective here is to use these for doing a color study for an actual painting. And that's really the tip for today. Is these color pencils can be used as a good example for a color study for an actual painting. And I want to make sure everybody subscribes to my YouTube channel, and give me a like and give me a thumbs up and give me some comments. I'd like to hear about what you think about today's program, and think about looking in next week. I'm going to do that same painting, same location, not the same painting, but I'm going to do it in watercolor using the color study I did today with the color pencils. So I'll be back next week on Thursday at 2 o'clock. We'll see you then. Bye.